Ashley, thank you. Let's bring in former Deputy National Security Advisor Steve Yates and board-certified plastic surgeon who escaped from Iran as a child, Dr. Sheila Nazarian. Thank you both for coming on. Steve, to you first. I want to play some sound of Karoline Leavitt talking about negotiations and red lines. She said this.
Has met with his national security team this morning. The meeting may be ongoing, maybe not. I don't want to speak affirmatively because I was prepping to come out here, but the proposal was being discussed. I don't want to get ahead of the president or his national security team. What I will reiterate is that the president's red lines with respect to Iran have been made very, very clear, not just to the American public, but also to them as well.
I mean, basically, Steve, what you have Iran saying is, listen, you take away the blockade, we'll open up the strait, and we'll just leave that nuclear stuff for later down the road. Not likely, right?
Well, it's kind of the first reason the president gave for going in to begin with. So I think even the Iranians have to know this is not something that's going to be left unaddressed. The president is more open to gradualism than I think I would have expected. And so he might be willing to sort of toy with the idea, OK, well, maybe you go ahead and let the Strait of Hormuz open up and you acknowledge the fact that you have not really laid a lot of mines and we are going to let this commerce go. Time is just not their friend.
Right.
And at some point, they know that Karg Island is full. They have no ability to feed the IRGC. It remains radical and powerful, and they really are going to have to try to cut a deal. So the president might let them say, OK, do your 2 out of 3, but make no mistake, we're getting to number 3.
Yeah, I think, by tomorrow I'm thinking, well, we'll let you look at a little bit of nuclear stuff, but not all of it. We'll settle that for the later date. Marco Rubio, Sheila, was talking to Trey Yingst about the reasonable hardliners and the crazy hardliners. He said this.
So you see a tension, and you always have in that system, between the Iranians who understand, let's be hardliners, but let's also balance that with the need to run a country, and the hardliners who don't care and have this apocalyptic vision of the future.
And the people inside Iran are kind of left trying to figure out who in the world is in charge. Is it the crazy hardliners? Is it the moderates? Is it half and half? I mean, that's kind of a pickle.
Trace, there are no moderates in the IRGC. You know, there's crazy crazies, and then there's crazies. So to the Iranian people, they're watching 1 or 2 of their young people be publicly executed on a daily basis. To them, it sure doesn't feel like, there's a less crazy option within this regime. I'm going to just, take the point that I don't think that Trump is going to take a deal at all with this regime. I think he is just buying time to economically strangle this regime, to allow more infighting, to allow a time period where they cannot pay the IRGC. There becomes more infighting, and it gives a chance for the Iranian people to take their country back. I think that's where Trump is going. I don't think he is actually going to make a deal with anybody in this regime.
Yeah, kind of brings us back full circle to your comment where time is not their friend, and it's not. UN Ambassador Mike Waltz called the Strait of Hormuz pivotal. He said this about it.
As a matter of international law, this strait is not, despite Iran's foreign minister's claims, this strait is not Iran's to wield like its own moat and drawbridge. It is not Iran's hostage. It is not Iran's bargaining chip. It is not Iran's toll road.
No, and he went on to talk about how maybe, maybe the allies, the coalition could come in here and help us out a little bit here because they could use a do-over, Steve.
Well, that's what the air quotes international community used to be all about.
Yeah.
I mean, Ambassador Waltz is speaking their language. Freedom of navigation, their big priority, and it's right. There's been a lot of debate of the president not going and asking allies specifically what they could do before going in, but now we know where the president is going on major military operations. There's definitely more they can do on freedom of navigation. We have allies that can check for mines. They have allies that can escort ships if they wanted to. This is the time for them to step in. But absolutely, positively, he's right to lay down the marker. Iran has no claim to say that they can control the strait.
Yeah. Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State, talked about the challenges inside Iran.
Family members of the army is going to stop having food. They'll stop having water. The realities of the fact that the strait is closed will begin to impose hardship on everyone throughout the entire country, from the elites to the poorest person inside of Iran.
Yeah, meaning that even military families have to eat, Sheila. They have to figure out a way to get money in there. They have to eat. They have to do the things that normal people do.
Absolutely right. But unfortunately, Trace, I think the people at the top have embezzled so much money to the tune of billions that we saw them, exporting them at the beginning of this war into other countries. I think the people that are running the show at the tippy top don't care about the people of Iran. They don't actually care about the people in the military or the policemen. They are willing to, in my opinion, they're so radical, they're willing to take it to the end and watch people starve in the streets. They already killed 45,000 of their own people in the streets. I don't think that they have the same value system that we have here in America, where we actually care about the citizens. They don't. All they care about is money, power, and a caliphate.
It sure appears that way. Sheila Nazarian, Steve Yates, thank you both.